In 1981, the New York Times ran this headline: Rare cancer seen in 41 homosexuals. It's been 45 years after, and the story is going around on the internet. People are talking about, how could they do that? How could they call people homosexuals? Why? Why would they do that? So, today, I want to speak to every executive that hires storytellers, every organization that hires storyteller, whether you are an agency, or you are client side, or you are the CEO of a non-for-profit. This is the reason why diversity, equity, and inclusion is a necessary philosophy when we hire storytellers. In 1982, Tylenol poisoning was a major thing in America. Guess how many people died of Tylenol poisoning? Seven people died. And guess how many times it was in the New York Times front cover page? It was run nearly every day. Every day it was a headline. So again, it was not the story. It was not about the disease. It was about the people that the disease affected. It's not about climate change. It's about the community that the weather event is affecting. Let's start from here. Right now, let's look at the storytellers who told these stories. Let's start from a profile. I'm going to build a profile on two axes. I'm going to look at it from power. Those storytellers that are closer to power. Power is mainstream. Power decide which narratives is mainstream, which narratives being heard. And then proximity is community. Proximity are people that are being affected or that are affected by the story. Whether you're talking about climate change, or you're talking about antibiotics, or you're talking about cancer, it's important for us to ask ourselves, who has power and who has proximity to those who are affected? And so in this very diagram, you're going to see four types of storytellers that emerge from the 80s HIV/AIDS crisis. I'm going to start with Lawrence Altman. That is the person everybody remembers. That's the guy who wrote that headline that you just look at. And people are like, how on earth would somebody call people homosexuals and use such derogatory terminology? It was a clinical term at that time. Who was Lawrence K. Altman? Lawrence K. Altman was a physician, or is a physician because I understand he's still alive. He is a doctor, actually one of the first doctor, if not the first doctor, to work full-time for Daily newspaper. He wrote the first person account of the disease that became AIDS. And honestly, he wrote it without proximity to the community and without having power over what he wrote itself. Remember, he was not the editor of the New York Times. He was a reporter hired to write about health. And he wrote this from epidemiological point of view. 41 homosexuals. Epidemiology. 41 statistics. Homosexuals. Clinical. That's not community. So let's put Lawrence in on this table. We're going to say he's not closer to the community and he's not in charge of the narrative. But he's still powerful anyway. So I will put him right in the middle, right there, right? So now let's look at another important storyteller at that time, and that was Lawrence D. Mars, another physician, but gay. So I would say he was closer, he has proximity to community. So from New York, and he was writing about this story every time. But guess what? Nobody outside that community saw it. This is a problem we have today. We're seeing stories that are being buried because the people reporting it are speaking to the choir. And we see people fighting for human rights, writing in the same space where human rights campaigners look at. They have proximity to the communities, but they don't have proximity to power. You can see the dissonance. And this is why we talk about hiring, using the AI. Okay? So let's look at another character here. A.M. Rosenthal. Who is A.M. Rosenthal? Many of you may have heard the name before or never, but you might have felt the influence. So if we go back to this headline I showed you, 41 homosexuals, what do you think was going on here? A.M. Rosenthal was the Times executive editor. Many people remembered him for keeping the paper's coverage of gays' life at arm's length. He was the gatekeeper who had the aperture. Whether by discomfort or design, he kept it narrow. Why many people kept dying of AIDS and HIV. I would say Rosenthal was power itself, very close to power, very far from community. We can see the dissonance. So Altman was working for him, and Altman would only report what he would approve. The last person here is the storyteller we all want to become. This is the story of Randy Shilts, openly gay reporter at San Francisco Chronicle, and one of the first American journalists assigned to cover the epidemic full-time, and later the author of the definitive early account of it. You can read about Randy Shilts. I mean, he was not just a mainstream reporter, he was closer to the story. He has a stake in it. He's coming from the community that's been heavily affected by the story. So when we talk about the story of women, we talk about children in Africa, we talk about, famine, we talk about war, we talk about displacement, we talk about immigration. Oftentimes, we have people telling this story from outside. We have people telling this story closer to power, but far from community. We have people telling this story closer to the community, but far from power. What we need to do is to merge this. We need to bring people. And it doesn't mean you have to have lived this experience for you to report, or for you to tell the story, or for you to be a copywriter, for you to be a journalist. You can still report the story by being closer, by living, by witnessing, by experiencing what's going on with the community that you're reporting.